Yeah. So Arvin, flat files. I know you obviously spent a ton of time working with these over the years, and there's a lot of
Yep.
nuances, but like what are kind of just some basic tips or some basic things that you think about with flat files or I don't know, just basic hygiene when it comes to flat files even?
Well, yeah, I mean, what you call this one? But maybe I can share with you first my experience about flat files, how I discovered it, and how my journey really,
Sure.
if I can sort of consider it as my journey. Well, actually, back in the days, maybe about 2017 or 2016, my first experience with flat file was when because in the like back then, Amazon is not really strict when it comes to updating a listing or even creating a new listing. You can just create it on the back end. And I realized that there is flat file when I have to create a variation for the product that we are selling in the UK. It's like a color variation, and I don't know how to do flat file. We ended up hiring someone from India who's very technical about it. And that time it was very expensive. About we paid him about $200 for just one variation. So I kind of like really curious about it, and so I discovered it, and have my personal experience about it. What I did that back then is I raised a case in Seller Central trying to ask them, because also that time seller support are not really following these workflows that they have right now. If you ask them questions, they'll do the extra mile for you. They'll explain everything from step one to step
They'd actually
whatever.
walk you through it.
Yeah, they walk me through it, but at the same time it's not enough. So I watch videos and stuff, and yeah. And then later on, as I actually like, this is interesting. And then in 2019, I don't know if 2019 or 2018, where Amazon like became really really strict with all of these updates about brands and sellers, not really allowing them. Maybe they're trying to control sellers who are not really selling authentic items, and also protecting big brands. So the updates that you're doing in the back end, they are no longer allowing it. So it became like really necessary to have a better understanding, or not really better, but have a good understanding about flat files, when to use it, how to use it, and if it is not working, how to escalate and when to escalate it. So there are several kind of flat files. There are category specific flat files. I use this one usually when I am like going to create a new listing. Of course, you have to make sure that you're listing your product in the right category. And there are just certain attributes that you just need to update when, let's say, when you're just creating it, and then later on try to optimize it. Of course, like the titles, like the vital information, titles, bullet points, descriptions, images, and other information that my Amazon may flag the listing for hazmat. So you have to add an information if it is like a dangerous product, or if it has battery in it. And then
So
there are other. I mean, I can go like discuss a lot
I want to
about
ask
flat
you a
files.
question. Is
Yeah.
like do you keep so I know like when I used to do more stuff with flat files, I used to keep like kind of a living version of them. Like essentially I'd have a flat file, I would update all the fields correctly.
Yeah.
Normally I'd use the category listing report first, and I would just use that as like home base. And then using that, I would essentially just keep that as my most up-to-date thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
any type of problem came up or an update, I would use that to then go and create my flat file that I upload to make the changes. Do you
Oh
still think
yes.
that's as important, or like now, like do you keep a living document saved on your computer for like a given brand or whatever, or can you just download something when you need it and then upload it right then? Like
Well,
download
yeah.
it, make the change, upload it.
Yeah, certainly you have to keep something, and also not just keeping a live file or a backup file, but also take a screenshot of the detailed page. It's different when, of course, when you're creating a listing that is not existing yet, but when you're updating a listing that is already in Amazon, and that already has its own ASIN, then before you make an upload, make sure that you have a backup file, you have a screenshot, because you don't know what's gonna happen after you do, especially if you're doing a full update, because there are different type of updates. They're like partial update when you're just updating a certain information, and then also there's a full update where you have to really push something and Amazon is not accepting it. So if you're doing a full update and your information in the flat file is incomplete, then that's a mess up. So make sure you have something like backed up. And just to add to that, a category listing report will not be sufficient as a backup, as a backup file, because when you download the category listing report, it's not always accurate and it's also not always complete, because the category listing report will only give you the information that is in your seller central account. It is not yet on the catalog. And sometimes there are various contributors of the listings or other retail contributors of the listings. So if you try to push or perform a full update coming from your own seller central account and Amazon acknowledged it, and but actually the first information that is in the detail page is from someone else, then you're kind of messing it up. Maybe special, maybe what do you call this one? Especially if you're just a distributor, that you're not the brand owner, but you are the winning contributor of that listing, and you perform that full update. Oh, that's messed up.
Gotcha. And then yeah, I think like no, I mean that makes sense. And I think two last questions that I have were just one, like, is it still possible to actually make updates to listings without a flat file? I know it's become increasingly hard, but like how hard has it really become? Like can you as a seller go in and change your title pretty easily if you're a brand owner with just in Seller Central by clicking edit on the listing? Or like is everything pretty much now so sticky it requires a flat file?
Well, there are still instances where sellers can just go into the backend and update the information, but I mean, I see this one almost close to, I would say not close to impossible, but almost, because even if even you are the brand owner, sometimes you will get responses from Amazon, or Amazon will tell you that the reason why you cannot update is because you are not the winning contributor, maybe someone else, or maybe someone has tried to hijack the listing. But even though sometimes you're the only seller on detail page, but you also cannot update it. But because sometimes maybe in the past you have created this listing under a different SKU, and you have deleted that SKU for some reason, and then you now have your new SKU and you're trying to push that update on this second SKU. So the winning contributor is on the first SKU that you created in the past. So but you have to update both. But actually me, for myself, just to make sure that I know it will be much easier, and then also it would be not that it much easier, but if I need to raise a case to Seller Central for an update that I tried, I can always just use the batch ID and say, hey, I performed this update. Amazon is not accepting it. Can you do something about it? So
Yeah. So generally, it's better to be able to at least prove, hey, I've already done a file or an upload with my flat file. Here's the batch ID, but the changes didn't work. So now I need you to like actually do something seller support. Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, man, that's
And
awesome.
yeah.
So, and I guess the last question is like, so would you consider that as an Amazon seller or what an agency owner or whatever? You pretty much need someone that's on your team that's knowledgeable with flat files. Like,
Oh
really,
yeah.
unless you're maybe just getting started and have like 2 or 3 SKUs. Like, otherwise, you're probably, if not right now, but you're going to need someone. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, if you're a small seller, you don't need really like someone who's an expert, because I mean, along the way, that person can, by experience, will learn the flat file. But if
Sure.
you're like a big seller, you definitely need to have someone that is really good, or I would say an expert, because there's like a lot of information in the flat file that could be cause problems, especially pricing and your promotions. There are certain columns in there that needs to be updated in the flat file that somehow the new agent, or the agent, or rather the virtual assistant working for you, will mess it up. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's good to think about. Well, cool. That's I think I just wanted to ask you a couple questions because I know flat files have become like a bigger and bigger deal. So thanks for sharing the knowledge and yeah, I appreciate it.
And it's just super basic. There's, we can go deeper, but I don't have that much time. So
We'll go in the second round of this. We'll go deep on some specifics of flat files.